King Arthur and His Knights by Elizabeth Lodor Merchant. The Rescue of Nimue. Oh, hark. Oh, hear. Oh, okay, it is oh, hark. Oh, hark, oh, hear, how thin and clear, and thinner, clearer, farther going, oh, sweet and far, from cliff and scar, the horns of Elfland faintly blowing. King Pellinore, that huge knight who once nearly killed King Arthur, and then took a place at the Round Table, and made the great vow, had many adventures in his day, but the one you were going to hear about was the greatest of all. You remember that he had galloped off at full speed after the fairy hunt. As he galloped, he swore to himself that he would save the pretty weeping lady who had been carried off by the Black Knight, and would bring her back in safety from the enchanted forest. He had become separated from King Arthur, and was now quite alone among the trees of this strange place, but just in front of him he could still hear the baying and yelping of the 60 coal-black hounds. He rode on as fast as he could, and then something happened that would have amazed another knight, but did not surprise King Pellinore at all, because he had known such a thing to happen before. The baying of the hounds suddenly became muffled and strange, as if they had disappeared inside a cave. The king turned the corner, and there in front of him stood a great beast that was not like a lion, nor a bear, nor even a dragon, nor anything in the world except itself. It stood and glared at him before turning round and lumbering away, crashing through the undergrowth with as much noise as a hippopotamus would have made, and through the mouth of the beast there still came the muffled baying of the hounds. This strange monster had swallowed them all, but they all seemed to be hunting the fairy stag. In the very middle of the beasts inside, King Pellinore gave a great shout, for he had been hunting this beast all his life, and knew that he would probably go on hunting until it had died, but never be able to kill it after all. But meanwhile he followed it hard through the bush and briar, often losing sight of it, but always hearing the strange muffled music of the fairy hounds. At last the beast disappeared altogether, and he saw a lady sitting by a fountain, who showed him the path that he must take through the enchanted forest, and told him that already the Black Knight and the pretty weeping maiden had gone that way. So then King Pellinore knew that, in following the beast, he had come the right direction for fulfillment of his vow. He heard the hounds still baying, but a long way off, as he hurried down the path shown him by the lady, in a very few minutes he reached a clearing in the woods where two beautiful tents, one blue and one crimson, were set up opposite each other in the flickering lights and shadows of the trees. At the door of one of those tents stood the maiden he had come to save, and on the trodden grass in the middle of the clearing the Black Knight, and on the black horse, was doing battle with sword and shield against another knight who seemed almost as big and strong as his enemy. King Pellinore poised his spear in his raised hand and galloped forward to drive away between them. "How now?" he cried. "How is this? Who are you both, that you fight in this way for the lady yonder, who belongs to neither of you, but came of her own will to ask the protection of King Arthur?" The Black Knight had pulled his great horse onto its haunches, but he shouted back at King Pellinore, whom he did not know as one of the knights of the Round Table. "That lady is mine," cried the Black Knight. shaking his lance. "This foolish fellow here is trying to steal her from me, but she is mine. I fought King Arthur for her, and I conquered him." Then the Black Knight rushed upon King Pellinore, and they fought until the forest rang with the noise. "And that is not true," shouted King Pellinore, and his voice in anger rang throughout the forest. "I was there, and I saw it all. You carried the lady away before a single knight of the Round Table had time to spring to arms and do battle for her. But every man of Arthur's court knows you have no right to her. I have followed the coal-black hounds and the beast which swallowed the hounds all the way through this enchanted forest to take the lady back again. Come, meet me here in this open space of grass, and we will soon see which is the better man." Then the Black Knight rushed upon King Pellinore, and with their swords and shields and spears they fought until the forest rang with the noise. But the king was soon the conqueror. He killed the Black Knight's horse, and when he saw his enemy lying on the crushed turf, he also sprang to the ground to finish the fight fairly on foot. And finish it he did, for he cut off the wicked Black Knight's head. Then the other knight, who had watched the battle from a little distance, came forward gladly and told King Pellinore to take the lady back to Arthur's court. I was but trying to save her from the Black Knight," he said. "I knew that he had no right to her, and he brought out a fresh, strong horse that had been tethered to a tree, and put King Pellinore's saddle and bridle upon it, and said he would care for the tired, hot horse which had been in the battle. Then he went up to the door of the tent, and giving his hand to the lady, led her forward. The lady had stopped crying now, and had let down her long veil and wound her hood about her head, so that King Pellinore could not see her face. And that little bit of extra was actually pretty common to many cultures. He lifted her into the saddle before springing up in front of her, and as she lay for an instant in his powerful arms, there seemed to rise to his nostrils the perfume of wild roses and violets washed in dew. How lightly she seemed to sit behind him, too. His big horse took no count of her extra weight as it trotted off through the trees, where the night shadows were gathering, and the stars already twinkling high up above the boughs. On and on rode King Pellinore and the lady until it was quite dark. Then he stopped his horse and lifted her down and guarded her while she slept under the trees. He was almost surprised to see in the morning that she was still there, because he guessed she was more than half a fairy and unlike an ordinary mortal. Well, jinn don't exactly vanish in the daylight either, but when they rode on again and passed out of the enchanted forest, he wondered if she would take wing like a moth or butterfly and remain behind, but she did not. And when the sun was high in the sky, both king and the lady rode safely into the courtyard of the castle at Camelot. Then King Arthur and Sir Gawain, who having soon lost the sound of the fairy hunt, had returned without encountering any adventures worth recording. And all the rest came out to meet them, and welcomed the lady right gladly, and gave praise and honor to King Pellinore, but the lady was still veiled, and at last King Arthur turned to her with courtesy, You will find shelter and happiness forever at my court, said he. The knights of this round table will be at your service always, ready to protect you, never failing to honor you. But you came and went almost as swiftly, and with as much surprise to us as the fairy hunt itself, to which somehow I think you half belong. Will you then let us now see your face? Then the lady threw back her veil and hood and showed her pretty, radiant face to the king and all his knights. The knights murmured in admiration, for she was very beautiful, but the king cried out with joy, for he knew her now, as he had not known her when the Black Knight carried her away. You are sweet, Nimue, he exclaimed. You are she who showed me the barge in which I rode to take my sword Excalibur from the hand that held it above the water. You are one of those wonderful beings who love the world of knighthood, one of the ladies of the lake. Nimue smiled, and let her veil fall again before she answered. Yes, I am Nimue, a lady of the lake, said she, and you have fulfilled your promise to me, King Arthur. From today I shall never be far away from you. With the other ladies, my fairy friends, I will come and go between the enchanted forest and the royal and knightly court of Camelot.